a death trap that's bound to shock you all upon hearing about it. The crime was committed here, and now jail is inevitable. No matter how hard the criminal tries to erase evidence or how much planning they do, they're destined for jail. Today's story is about an incident like this, a death trap that will leave you shocked. It raised questions about law and order and the police, but the police's work on this case was widely praised. Today's story is very interesting. The story I'll talk about today is the Priya Mehra case. It begins in the capital of India, Delhi, in 2017. The Mehra family lived in Rohini Sector 15 in Delhi. Husband Pankaj Mehra, wife Priya Mehra, and their 1.5-year-old son. It was Wednesday, October 25th, 2017, around 4 am. The Mehra family was returning home from Bangla Sahib Gurudwara, a well-known place in Delhi. They had their own car, a Maruti, driven by Pankaj, with Priya sitting beside him, holding their son in her lap. The mother and son were asleep, as it was early morning around 4 am, and the streets were dark, with only a few street lights on and almost no one on the road. They were about to reach home and needed to take a U-turn near the Haidarpur metro station, close to Tihar jail. As they slowed down to make the turn, a Haryana-numbered Swift car overtook their Maruti and stopped right in front. A tall, broad-shouldered man got out, visibly furious, holding a pistol. He approached Pankaj's car and tried to open the driver's side door, but it was locked from inside, and Pankaj was terrified. Then, the man tried to break the car window with his pistol, hitting it hard, and the glass shattered. He pointed the gun at Pankaj's forehead. The loud noise woke Priya up, and their son started crying. Priya, upon seeing the pistol, was terrified. Pankaj grabbed the gun in an attempt to defend himself, and a struggle ensued. In the scuffle, the man fired a shot that hit Priya in the neck. He fired again, this time hitting her near her eye. The man tried to shoot a third time, but the gun jammed. Enraged, he punched Pankaj multiple times, injuring his nose and eye, and then fled the scene. Priya was shot twice, while Pankaj had suffered injuries from the struggle, but fortunately, their young son was unharmed. The entire incident took barely a minute. Priya was unconscious, the child was crying, and Pankaj, despite his injuries, started the car and rushed to the hospital. Around 4:02 am, Pankaj called 100, reporting that someone had attacked them and his wife was shot. He urged the police to reach the hospital quickly. He reached Saraj Hospital and informed both his and Priya's family about the incident. The families arrived at the hospital in distress by morning, but during treatment, Priya Mehra succumbed to her injuries. The police were also present at the hospital, with Pankaj being the only eyewitness. Their young son was too little to communicate anything. At the hospital, the family began protesting as no doctor had initially attended to Priya when she arrived wounded. They were told that treatment couldn't begin until the police arrived, despite doctors being on the night shift. Later, the police arrived, but even after their arrival, there was a delay before doctors came. Priya lay there, covered in blood, and then the doctor declared her dead, leading to chaos at the hospital. The family argued with the police, asking why they hadn't taken action. Pankaj also called the news media, and soon, this tragic incident spread across Delhi and neighboring states. A post-mortem was conducted on Priya, revealing gunshot wounds near her neck and eye. The police began questioning Pankaj about whether he had any enemies. Pankaj was a businessman who ran a restaurant in the Paharganj area and a cafe in Hans Lane, GTB Nagar. Initially, both establishments did well, but eventually, they started incurring losses. To sustain the business, Pankaj had borrowed around 5 lakhs on interest from some financiers in Haryana's Sonipat. Over time, the debt, along with interest, had ballooned to 10 lakhs. The lenders wanted their money back, but Pankaj's business wasn't doing well. Although he kept promising to repay gradually, things deteriorated, and the lenders began threatening him, demanding repayment with interest. A few days before the incident, 2 or 3 men had visited Pankaj's house in Delhi, where only Priya and other family members were present, and they threatened the family, saying the consequences would be severe if the debt wasn't repaid. Then, suddenly, this tragic crime took place on the morning of October 25th, 2017. Pankaj told the police officers the names of 3 people from whom he had taken money and who had also threatened him. These individuals were residing in Sonipat, Haryana. Additionally, The criminal who came at that time was driving a vehicle with an HR registration plate, indicating it was registered in Haryana. All these details came up shortly after the incident. Pankaj informed the police that the attackers had come to kill him. However, during a scuffle over the gun, the criminal fired, and the bullet hit Priya. Priya was hit by 2 bullets, but fortunately, a 3rd bullet got jammed in the gun, which could have had Pankaj's name on it. Pankaj shared these details with the media as well. Meanwhile, the financiers got wind through the media that the man they had recently threatened and to whom they had loaned money had now lost his wife to murder. This man was blaming them, and immediately afterward, the 3 individuals went underground. That day, the Delhi police formed a team and started a large-scale search for the financiers, visiting places across Delhi, Haryana, and various locations in Sonipat. Numerous raids were conducted, and toll plaza data was checked to see how many Haryana-registered Swift cars had passed through. Throughout the day, Pankaj was occupied with his wife's last rites at the hospital, and Priya's cremation was performed on that day as well. As the police continued to investigate the financiers, they began questioning the logic behind the motive. Typically, if someone lends money to another, they wouldn't intentionally harm them, as it would mean they could never get their money back, and they'd also risk jail. Threats might be possible, but taking someone's life seemed unlikely. Thus, the police started doubting that the lenders could be responsible for the murder. Anyone with a substantial amount at stake wouldn't make such a foolish move. The police speculated that Pankaj might have misunderstood the situation and that these individuals might have come for a different reason. By now, it was 4 a.m., and the area was completely deserted. No shops were open. At this hour, only criminals, robbers, and thieves are active, so the police began investigating this angle. They questioned the doctors and staff involved in Priya's post-mortem. According to them, Priya's body arrived adorned with jewelry. Pankaj himself brought the car to the hospital, so the police carefully examined the vehicle. Inside the car, Priya's mobile phone, purse, and sandals were all present, suggesting that robbery may not have been the motive. Naturally, the police began suspecting Pankaj as well. While several teams were raiding places to locate the financiers, an investigation into Pankaj was also underway. Conversations with people close to him revealed the nature of his relationship with Priya. According to Priya's uncle, Pankaj and Priya had known each other since college, where they met and eventually had a love marriage. They initially had twin daughters who passed away shortly after birth, and later, they had a son. Some relatives said that the couple's relationship had soured recently, with frequent arguments, though acquaintances mentioned this as normal in any marriage. They always attended functions together and kept up appearances of a loving couple. The police found nothing substantial from this angle and decided to investigate the crime scene to see if anyone had witnessed it. Some reported only hearing gunshots and a man screaming, but hadn't seen the attackers or the incident. The police then decided to review CCTV footage, collecting videos from all cameras in the area. However, none of the cameras captured the incident directly. This led to frustration as news of the crime spread across Delhi, raising questions about law and order and the police's ability to control such crimes. Having exhausted other leads, the police decided to recreate the crime to better understand it. By the evening of October 25th, they informed Pankaj to come to the Shalimar police station for the recreation. On October 26th, with Pankaj present, they started reenacting the events from the Bangla Sahib Gurdwara, tracing the route Pankaj took, noting his car's speed, and verifying if he had stopped anywhere. They reached the U-turn near Haidarpur metro station, where Pankaj recounted the events once again. Despite these efforts, the police were no closer to solving the case, and the financiers remained underground. The police then turned their focus to Pankaj's call records and questioned everyone who had visited his home. Pankaj remained unaware that he was the primary focus of their investigation. During this, the police discovered that this was Pankaj's second marriage. His first marriage ended in separation, after which he met and fell in love with Priya, a college friend. Reportedly, he had left his first wife, Aisha, for Priya. Relatives disclosed that there were constant arguments between Pankaj and Priya, often due to suspicions over his absence, as he would spend nights away from home, presumably at his restaurant. In a fortunate twist, while reviewing the crime scene, One officer noticed a CCTV camera installed at a nearby medical store that had been previously overlooked due to its distance from the crime spot. The officer retrieved the footage for analysis, and they discovered that around 4 a.m., the camera had captured a glimpse of Pankaj Mehra's Maruti car approaching the U-turn. When it reached the U-turn, the car started slowing down and eventually stopped in the middle of the road for about 1 minute and 40 seconds before it moved again. Now, the camera quality wasn't that great, and the scene was quite far, so nothing was clearly visible. The police played the footage several times, reviewing moments before and after, and all that was clear was a Maruti car stopping briefly in the middle of the road before driving off again. Before and after this car, there were no other vehicles, nor was it overtaken. It stopped on its own. Now, this situation is entirely opposite to Pankaj's statement. Pankaj had claimed that his car was overtaken by a swift car at the U-turn, but here, he stopped on his own. The police immediately called Pankaj to the station. It was around noon on October 26th when Pankaj arrived at Shalimar Bagh police station. Even then, he stuck to his original statement. The police then showed him the CCTV footage, and upon seeing it, Pankaj became nervous and started sweating. He finally admitted to killing his wife, Priya. When this news reached his family, no one could believe that a husband had murdered his own wife. On the night of October 24th, Pankaj had called Priya, asking her to meet him at a cafe in GTB Nagar, saying they'd have dinner and go for a long drive, and then visit the Gurdwara. Since there had been arguments between them, Priya thought he was making an effort to mend their relationship, so she happily brought their 5-year-old son along and went to meet him at the cafe. They had dinner, then got into his Maruti car and set off on a long drive, with their son sleeping in Priya's lap. The couple enjoyed music and conversation during the drive. Around midnight, they reached Bangla Sahib Gurdwara, where they stayed for an hour before heading back home. Pankaj drove calmly, and since neither of them had slept the whole night, his wife and son fell asleep in the car. This was the moment Pankaj had been waiting for. When they reached the U-turn, he slowed down until his wife was sound asleep. Then, he kept driving in a way that time passed, ultimately leading to her death. Afterward, he planned to head to the hospital, where some acquaintances had already gathered. According to them, Priya was still breathing when they arrived, but due to delayed treatment, she passed away. The question remained, why would a husband commit such a heinous crime against his wife? Pankaj explained that he previously had a clothing business, which failed, resulting in losses worth millions. Priya's family helped him financially, allowing him to start a restaurant business, but it also did not perform well. Priya suggested hiring a singer to attract customers with live music. He followed her suggestion, but it didn't help much. Meanwhile, Pankaj borrowed money from people in Sonpat, and the interest on the debt reached lakhs. Those lenders started demanding their money back, even showing up at his home to threaten him. During this time, Pankaj began an affair with a singer Priya had suggested he hire. Priya never imagined her husband would have an affair with this woman. Meanwhile, relatives also claimed that Pankaj wanted to rekindle his relationship with his first wife, Aisha, with whom he was still close. In essence, Pankaj had affairs with 2 women, his first wife and the singer. He could have divorced Priya, but he didn't want to because her family had provided financial assistance. If he divorced her, he would have to repay them. So, he started thinking that if Priya were out of the way, he could freely be with whomever he wanted. Pankaj planned the murder meticulously. He borrowed a pistol from his friend Manu and scouted various locations in Delhi, looking for a spot with no cameras or potential witnesses. He chose the U-turn near Haidarpur metro station, a road frequently used by him and his family. He even timed the murder to coincide with their usual visits to the Gurdwara, ensuring no one would find it suspicious. After hearing all of this, the police officially arrested Pankaj. Within a day and a half, the case was resolved. Pankaj was presented in court and placed under judicial custody, with his statements recorded in detail and further evidence gathered. The murder weapon, the pistol, became crucial evidence. 11 teams were assigned to investigate, with one reaching Sonpat to arrest Manu, who had provided the weapon to Pankaj. The singer working at the restaurant was also summoned to court. It turned out that she and Pankaj did love each other and wanted to marry, but she had no idea he would go to the extent of killing his wife. Priya's one. 5-year-old son was later adopted by her brother and sister-in-law, who would now look after him. Some reports claimed that, in addition to his first wife and the singer, Pankaj had affairs with around 6 other women. Priya's family demanded a death sentence for their daughter's killer. The case is currently ongoing in the Sessions Court. I'll update you in the comments or at the beginning of the story when I learn more. So, this was the complete story of the Priya Mehra murder case. Look at how a husband fabricated such a convincing story, initially claiming an unknown man fired the gun by accident. All of this story was Pankaj's fabrication. Let me know in the comments if you'd heard about this case before. And if you're new to this channel, please subscribe and don't forget to press the notification bell. See you soon with another intriguing story.